Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, both in the room here at the regional headquarters of the University of the West Indies and those who've joined online. I am Faye Ellington. Let me introduce our host at this time, Dr. Gary Conneal, UN President Coordinator. I'd like to acknowledge representatives of government who might be with us, heads of diplomatic missions, heads of international agencies, and other members of the diplomatic corps, including members of the UN country team. Professor Shazida Ali, Dean of the Faculty of Law, University of the West Indies, Mona, representing Professor Dale Weber, Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor, UWI. Esteemed panelists, specially invited guests, distinguished members of the press, might I also acknowledge at this time, interpreter for the deaf, Antoinette Aiken, and I will now say, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Jamaica. Just so you know, social media will be integrated in this event. Today's event is available on YouTube and Facebook via the platforms of the Jamaica Information Service, the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, at UN Jamaica, and the handle is at UN Jamaica. And that they're using that handle on all their platforms. And at UN Jamaica is also live streaming on Twitter. So welcome to everybody on social media who's joined us at this time. Please allow me some time to acknowledge the UN agencies in Jamaica. It's important that we say who they are. And that's these agencies, we want to recognize the staff and the leadership and efforts of all the UN agencies operating in Jamaica. So come on, let's just hear a little cheer for them, please, from the audience here. And these agencies work in partnership with the people and government of Jamaica to achieve Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. So here we go. UNDP, UNICEF, UNESCO, FAO, UN Women, IOM, UNEP, Cartagena Convention Secretariat, PAHO and the World Health Organization, UNFPA, WFP, UNAIDS. Those are about the numbers, and we want to acknowledge them and thank them for their continued work in Jamaica. Here's a little bit of background that I think is important for us to put the morning and the day's events into perspective. In recognition of the 77th anniversary of the United Nations and the 60th anniversary of Jamaica's membership to the UN Jamaica Country Team, UNCT, will commemorate these milestones, and they have been since this week, by engaging national stakeholders in a dialogue on the power of partnerships and the need to accelerate progress and sprint for the goals. UN Day is commemorated annually on the 24th of October, recognizing the entry into force of the UN Charter in 1945. This past Monday, the UN and the government of Jamaica collaborated to host a flag-raising ceremony in the courtyard of the Jamaica Conference Center, and also hosted a launch for today's event, which included a presentation on the Jamaica Recent Voluntary National Review, the VNR. This VNR also forms the basis for today's varied presentations and panel discussions. This year, the UN aims to reaffirm and recognize that our challenges are interconnected and can only be addressed through reinvigorated multilateralism and partnership, principles with which Jamaica continues to lead and exemplify on the global stage. UN Jamaica Partnership Week 2022 is a local initiative of the United Nations in Jamaica, which constitutes the full UN country team. Today's event is a second annual staging of the forum. Having said all of that, I will now move to our first speaker of the day. Dr. Shazida Ali is an attorney at law and Dean of the Faculty of Law, Mona Law, at the University of the West Indies, UWI Mona. She is a former course director in ethics, rights and obligations of the legal profession at the Norman Manley Law School. Dr. Ali served as a technical advisor in the Attorney General's Chambers of Jamaica. She has presented and published a number of papers on financial services regulation, financial crime, and legal ethics. She is the author of the books Money Laundering Control in the Caribbean and Proceeds of Crime Act, Taking the Profit Out of Crime. She's also a contributor and the editor of books, The Ethical a Caribbean perspective on risky business, perspectives on corporate misconduct. Dr. Ali has a Bachelor of Laws from the University of the West Indies, a Master's of Laws from Cambridge University, a PhD from the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies at the University of London. She was called to the bar in Jamaica and Guyana. Dr. Ali was appointed for the period August 1, 2018 to July 31, 2019, and then appointed as Dean effective August 1, Emancipation Day on 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, could you help me welcome Dr. Ali?
Thank you very much, Ms. Ellington. Dr. Conneal, Professor Sachs, Mrs. Perkins, Dr. McNaughton, members of the government, members of the UN agencies and the diplomatic corps here present, panel moderators, panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed my pleasure on behalf of Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of the West Indies Mona Campus, Professor Dale Weber, to welcome you this morning to this very important forum. I welcome you to the campus of the University of the West Indies. The UWI remains the top Caribbean university and is renowned for world-class innovation in higher education and research. The UWI has always been committed to the development of the Caribbean and has aligned both our strategic plan and resources to this end. And with Jamaica celebrating our 60th anniversary membership with the United Nations, we wish to recognize this milestone and highlight that the UWI Mona campus has both a long and a solid history with all the various agencies of the United Nations. Indeed, UWI has operated as the implementing agency in Jamaica on many major development projects embarked by various UN agencies. And in particular, I would highlight the UNDP, UNEP, UNESCO, and UNICEF. The UE, our strategic plan, articulates our and that in that regard, we pursue partnerships that can further promote both the growth and the development of the entire Caribbean region. Our partnership over the years with the UN has allowed us to fulfill this mandate. Jamaica's policies in varying areas have also been influenced by this partnership. For example, the Cartagena Convention, which is a regional agreement for the protection of the Caribbean Sea. Jamaica has ratified this convention and many other environmental conventions. And these have been facilitated by partnerships between the UN and UE in particular. And these include other projects, such as the UNESCO project with the Faculty of Social Sciences, and UNICEF has also had a long-standing relationship with the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies, SALISES. Indeed, the UE and Jamaica have benefited significantly from these partnerships as we continually strive for a whole of society approach in the advancement of the UN's 17 SDGs, as well as Jamaica's own Vision 2030 goals. So one could say that the UE and the UN are intertwined, as our institution has used these sustainable development goals as a template or a blueprint for our own strategic plan. We have adopted some of the SDGs as part of our guiding light, so to speak. SDG 3, good health and well-being, has been adopted by the Faculty of Medical Sciences. SDG number 5, gender equality, or Institute for Gender Development Studies. SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. We have the UE Mona Net Zero building, which is the first of its kind in the Caribbean, which features energy efficient architecture with renewable energy. SDG 13, climate action. The Faculty of Social Science and Technology is a leading faculty in this regard. SDG 14, life below water. The UE Mona has 2 marine labs, which have done many projects with the UNEP. And of course, SDG 17 for the goals as we continue to partner with many of these agencies. And if I may add, SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. My own faculty, the Faculty of Law, we are committed to working on various projects that seek to attain these goals. At the same time, we recognize many of the challenges to attaining the SDGs. And to this end, we remain committed to working towards overcoming these challenges. As the UE sprints to achieve these goals by 2030, we are committed to work on various aspects of the goals. And as we embrace the new strategic plan for 2022 to 27, we will increase our focus on matching the UN SDG goals for the 2030 timeline. And at the end of 2027, we will in fact use the SDGs as a benchmark to measure the success of the UE strategic plan. And so overall, I wish to assure you that the UWI remains steadfast in our support of improving lives and the protection of the environment, whilst implementing strategies as we continue to address the 17 SDGs and the related thematic issues, especially as it relates to the small island developing states. So the UWI looks forward to greater partnership and the continuation of our working together with the UN and its various agencies to make Jamaica's Vision 2030 agenda a reality. I suppose the mantra could be multilateralism and partnership. And with that, I do thank you and wish for you an enriching and engaging forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shazida Ali. You've laid out exactly what the University of the West Indies is doing and will continue to do in the form of partnerships to ensure that the Caribbean and Jamaica remain on track with all of what we need to be focused on. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the UN Resident Coordinator, Dr. Gary Conneal. Dr. Conneal brings over 20 years of experience to this current position, most of them in the United Nations and international NGOs. Prior to the appointment as resident coordinator in Jamaica, Dr. Conneal served as resident coordinator in Burundi, 2017 to 2020. And before that, as Under Secretary General for Programs and Operations with the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, 2015 to 2017. Dr. Conneal was also the United Nations Office for Project Services Regional Director for the Africa region, 2014 to 2015, and head of the UN Development Program's Millennium Development Goals, MDG, Support Unit, 2008 to 2010. He began his career with the UN in Haiti, with the UN Population Fund, UNFPA, in 1999. Now, in the wake of Haiti's 2010 earthquake, Dr. Conneal served as Chief of Staff to the Office of the United Nations Special Envoy for Haiti, former United States President William J. Clinton, where he helped coordinate Haiti's reconstruction efforts. And in 2011, Mr. Conneal was nominated Prime Minister of Haiti, a position he served until 2012, when he took up the role of Senior Advisor to Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in her role as co-chair of the UN High-Level Panel on the Post-2015 Development Agenda. Dr. Conneal holds a medical degree from the Faculty of Medicine and Pharmacy of the State University of Haiti and a Master of Public Health from the University of North Carolina, at Chapel Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, could you help me welcome Dr. Gary Conneal?
Thank you so very much, Faye Ellington. We were really quite privileged to have you today. I've grown to know you through your work, and it's an honor and a privilege for you to have accepted to join us in what we think is a very, very important meeting. Distinguished guests, heads of diplomatic missions, heads of international agencies, Professor Shaziba Ali, Dean of the Faculty of Law, University of West Indies, Madame Donna Parchment Brown, Political Ombudsman, members of the press, Jamaicans, and friends in the diaspora online, guests, staff, and colleagues, and of course, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start the day with some very positive news, which is that I'm going to be extremely brief. I'm hoping we'll get you in the mood. So we've assembled such an impressive list of experts, people from the private sector, from civil society, from government, international experts that you'll hear from, to what I consider to be one of the most attractive venues in the world to think collectively about the SDGs and to find ways where we can accelerate progress towards the SDGs for Jamaica. Among, of course, our many partners, I wish to especially recognize the Planning Institute of Jamaica, whose support and leadership contributed to our completion of the current multi-country sustainable development cooperation framework. We're also proud to have supported the government of Jamaica in developing and presenting the VNR, the Voluntary National Review, to other member states this year, and it was a big success. Jamaica's VNR was well recognized as one of the very, very powerful ones presented at the ECOSOC meetings this year. I am so pleased to be having this event, as I said, in the regional home of the University of the West Indies. Over the past year, we have developed a strong partnership with UWI and the Department of Economics, and together have established the Jamaica Economic Panel. We make a pitch for it. If you haven't looked at it yet, please do. It's a wonderful thing we're doing together. Its results continue to receive local and international attention from experts in the field. Professor Ali, please convey our highest regards to Principal Weber and the head of the department, Mrs. McLeod Rose, for their invaluable commitment to the JEP. Now, this is the second annual partnership forum in Jamaica, and through this vehicle, we aim to support the development of multi-stakeholder partnerships in keeping with SDG 17 to generate creative solutions like the JEP to address national development issues, including through expanded civic space. So I really hope that this the initiative of the day will lead to meaningful opportunities, including the building of sustainable partnerships and expanding opportunities to facilitate a wider scope for mobilizing ideas and resources to meet the joint priorities of Agenda 2030. We hope we will continue to facilitate this annual experience, bringing together all of our partners and stakeholders to, of course, strengthen our focus. In this regard, I encourage all of you to take full advantage of the day's activities for your organizations and for the greater goal of localized global agenda, meet new people, build new bridges, establish new partnerships. An old African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. To sprint for the goals in this decade of actions requires all hands on deck. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. To support us in the experience of facilitating partnerships and building bridges, we are privileged to have with us one of the architects of the SDGs. He is a world-renowned economist who has made its purpose to support small island development states through the development of bold and innovative strategies to address complex challenges, including things like debt crisis, hyperinflation, the transition from central planning to market economies, the control of AIDS, malaria, and other disease, the escape from extreme poverty, and the battle against human-induced climate change. I'm, of course, speaking of Professor Sachs, but more than that, it's really a pleasure to introduce my former boss, a mentor, and a great friend, someone who's really taught me to think ambitiously, to understand that we must achieve the goals. One of the most courageous speakers for development I know. It really is a great pleasure to introduce Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Professor Sachs, over to you.
Gary, thank you very, very much. Let me reciprocate by saying how much I learn from you and how much I treasure our friendship and how much I congratulate you on your leadership. And to all the friends present at the meeting, warm greetings. And to UWI, yes, you are a wonderful university and provide great service to the Caribbean and to the world. And UWI's role in the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network is a global leadership role, and I'm absolutely grateful for that. I will be brief and to the point. There are lots of friends in Jamaica present at this gathering. I think the core concept that Jamaica needs is fiscal space. The Sustainable Development Goals are an investment agenda. Investment in education, investment in health, investment in clean energy, investment in sustainable land use, investment in urban infrastructure, investment in climate adaptation, so vital for the Caribbean, investment in digital access and digital services. This is the essence of the SDGs, is to increase significantly, I would say in the case of Jamaica, for example, roughly by around 10% of GDP compared to the present, the flow of investment going to these critical areas. That's what it means to reach goals by 2030, rather than the agonizingly long period of living with extreme deprivations, and high inequalities, and inadequate infrastructure. The problem is very basic for half the world, at least, and that is that there's no fiscal space to carry out this investment agenda. So the goals are put out there, governments endorse them, but they're not achievable at the current flows of investment. So why not invest more? Well, because Jamaica has a debt overhang that, by the way, goes back 40 years. For as long as I've been in economics, Jamaica has been facing debt problems. That's not the fault of Jamaica, is the point I'm making. That is the fault of an international system that never solves problems, that just pushes problems down the road. And that doesn't solve the problems. It doesn't even delay the solutions. It sometimes just completely frustrates the solutions. Jamaica can't borrow to fund its way to sustainable development. And because of this overhang, every time it revisits an IMF program, it's basically constrained on investments rather than provided with a framework for actually achieving the sustainable development goals. And this is a kind of special cruelty, I would say, for the Caribbean region, which is battling the effects of climate change that the Caribbean, of course, not only had no role whatsoever in causing, but in which the Caribbean faces a disproportionate burden as a result of the higher temperatures, the changing rainfall patterns, and of course, the rising sea levels and extreme storms, the hurricanes. And who does anything about this? Nobody. It's losses and damages, which is what this kind of injury falls under, doesn't have any solution under the climate agreement right now. The rich countries, starting with my own, the United States, absolutely don't want to hear anything about historical responsibility whatsoever, even though the US is responsible for about 25% of the greenhouse gas concentration increase. Don't talk to us about historical responsibility. It's not our responsibility. And that is absolutely wrong-headed, but is the current reality. So the problem is really rather straightforward, actually. Jamaica needs to increase its outlays on education. I would say especially right now on higher education, on science, technology, and innovation. It needs to increase its outlays on parts of the healthcare system. It definitely needs to make investments in climate adaptation. It needs to find a workable and sustainable zero carbon energy system, as does every country in the world. It needs to close what is right now a big digital divide within the country. So one can lay out, and I would say it is the work of the government, and it's a reflection of the VNR, and it's what the UN partners with Dr. Kani's brilliant leadership can really help to do. It's what the academic work and the wonderful students at UWI can help to design these investment transformation pathways with the price tags, the costing, the budget outlays, and so forth. But then the real issue is finding the finance. And I would say that there are 3 solutions to this problem that I would just like to put on the table in closing. The first is swap out Jamaica's heavy debt and turn it into funding for the SDGs. So a debt for SDG swap, after 40 years, it's enough. It's enough time talking about this debt crisis. It's time to convert the interest payments abroad, which are several percent of GDP, into several percent of spending on the SDGs. So to the partners, stop collecting the debt, turn it into SDG financing. That's number one. The second is that the rich countries need to fund a losses and damages fund to recognize the historical responsibility for the climate disaster that we're already in. And I believe that there should be basic levies based on the cumulative CO2 that countries have emitted up until now. That fund should then be available to Jamaica and other countries in the Caribbean, and of course, other developing countries around the world, to fund 2 kinds of outlays: climate adaptation, which is woefully, tragically, disastrously underfunded, and responses to disasters, which are coming fast and furious in the Caribbean region. So that's the second funding. That's not even aid. Let's put aside the word. You could call it reparations, you could call it compensation, you could call it just losses and damages funding, but it is basic climate justice. And we need a little bit of climate justice in this world. The third way to increase the fiscal space is long-term, low-interest lending from the multilateral development institutions. And the Americas have 2 regional institutions that can do a lot more and should do a lot more. They do a good job on investments, but the flows are too small. And of course, I'm referring to the Inter-American Development Bank and the Latin American Development Fund, or the CAF. And both the CAF and the IADB should increase their loan flows by perhaps a factor of 5. And that would mean more paid in capital by the member states in order to leverage that capital perhaps 5 to 1, so that there could be long-term loans for Jamaica and other countries in the region in order to be able to carry out the SDG and the energy transformation agenda. Why do I say loans? Because if there really were the fiscal space, what has been chronically low or even zero growth per capita in Jamaica and other countries over long, painful stretches would become rapid growth that would provide the basis for servicing those loans in the long term. But it only makes sense if the loans are on a tenor of 30 or 40 years and at interest rates that are AAA interest rates. Then it's possible for Jamaica and others to take on new debt after that debt for SDG swap wipes out the old bad debt, take on new debt that really incrementally funds not debt service payments, but funds actual investments in the SDGs, resulting in the growth that then provides the space for repayments. Secretary General Guterres at the UN General Assembly this year called for an SDG stimulus based on these concepts, these very concepts. He's called on the G20 countries to get with it and to understand how debt for SDG swaps, increased MDB financing, climate justice, all have a significant role to play. In developing this SDG stimulus concept, we had a meeting next door in Barbados in July that Prime Minister Mia Mottley hosted, and it was an extraordinarily fruitful meeting. And we discussed a losses and damages funding mechanism. We discussed the SDG stimulus. This is a package that would transform the prospects of the Caribbean region. So please count on me. That's what I'm fighting for every day. I think if we work together, raise our shared voices at COP27, which is just around the corner now in Sharm el-Sheikh, and I will do the same the following week at the G20. I think we can be heard now. There's a lot of din and a lot of confusion in the world right now, that's for sure. But the message that we need to finance the investment increase to achieve sustainable development is going to be heard. So thank you very much. Please count on me for all the partnership to turn the SDGs really into an investment program that does the job. Thanks a lot.
Professor Jeffrey Sachs, we will count on you. You said it twice in about 30 seconds.
Good.
You know we need that kind of support. Whenever I listen to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, you know that it's going to result in robust debate. You either agree with him or you don't agree with him, but he's going to bring you to a place where you have to think, and you might have to think outside of what he's saying or support him, but you're going to have to think. The swap out Jamaica's debt, turn it into funding for SDGs. That's an interesting perspective. Rich money need to fund losses and the dangers, reparation, climate justice, and of course, a long-term low interest lending. I'm certain you'll all go into this in far more detail. Might I just also acknowledge our second interpreter for the deaf, that we call him DQ Wedderburn. And in case I do not do it later on in the day, there's going to be a third interpreter, that's Abraham, of course, Antoinette Aiken first. It is so important that we ensure that all persons get this information. And so our interpreters for the deaf play such an important role. And now, ladies and gentlemen, introduction of the SDGs dashboard presentation. The SDG National Reporting Platform is designed to store, manage, and disseminate SDG data and metadata. As such, it will facilitate greater information sharing for reporting on the Sustainable Development Goals between local, international, and regional communities. The availability and access to high quality, timely, disaggregated, and reliable data is fundamental. I know you'll agree with that, to the successful implementation and monitoring of the 2030 agenda. Promoting data sharing and collaboration among stakeholders who are involved in SDG data production and analyses is a crucial component in the localization process. The platform will allow citizens, policymakers, and other stakeholders to easily find, view, and download data for analysis and decision-making. Now, this presentation is going to be led by two persons who know how to do this and will guide us in how to do this. Hope Perkins, Senior Statistician, Office of the Director General, the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, and Dr. Maurice McNaughton, Director, Center of Excellence and Innovation, Senior Lecturer, Mona School of Business and Management, University of the West Indies. Might I just ask us now to get ready for that presentation? Could you welcome them?
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Is it still morning? Right. We will be presenting on Jamaica's SDG reporting platform. And before we do, we would just like to give you a little background of how the platform was developed and our role in the platform. Now, one aspect of Jamaica's coordinating mechanism for the SDG Should I go ahead? Okay. So as I was saying, one aspect of Jamaica's coordination for the SDG is the core group. Now, this core group it's made up of 3 entities: the Planning Institute of Jamaica, which has responsibility for policy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, that has responsibility for the implementation of Jamaica's foreign policy, foreign management, and Jamaica's international relations and the promotion of interests overseas. We also have the National Statistics Office, which is Statistical Institute of Jamaica, that has responsibility for the monitoring and reporting of the SDG indicators. The national strategy for SDG reporting, as we would like to define it first, refers to the act of publishing and disseminating data and statistics on the SDG indicators for key stakeholders. Currently in Jamaica, it involves Statin as the coordinator and the entity that compiles the SDG indicators. It also involves the ministry, department, and agencies, which also assist us in compiling indicators for the SDGs and providing the data. And we have the reporting of the SDGs. And this afternoon, we will, for the first time, be presenting the platform in which we are hoping to report on the SDGs. Developing SDG indicators for Jamaica involve certain process. The first one is that we assess the indicators that are provided through the SDG platform. We assess, we meet with the different stakeholders, including MDAs, private sectors, and we go through the thematic working group of Agenda 2030. Having assessed, what we do is to collect the data, we develop it, we compile, and then we report. What we have been doing, we have reported through the VNR report, which was done the first one. Regrettably, we were not able to be a part of the second one due to census taking. And as you're aware, we are in the process of doing our population and housing census. However, we also have another report that we have produced. To date, or since the last assessment was done, for the SDG indicators, we have available 36.9% available, and we also provide data on 11.9% using proxy. The data collection for reporting on the SDGs, these are some of the things that we do to collect data. We use data that are produced internally at Statin. We make data requests to MDGs, private sector. We also visit websites such as the Jamaica Public Service to get some data from them. We also use JET, the Jamaica Environmental Trust data. And we also use reports published by different organizations such as their annual reports. These are some of the data sources. The data sources from Statin, as you can see, the population and housing census, and this is very critical to providing data for the SDGs, because this is the time we get data at the very lowest level, the ED level. And we want data on persons like the disabilities, and this is the only time that we're able to collect the data. Our surveys are not able to give us the data at that level. We also use administrative data provided by Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Labor, and Social, the Labor Ministry, the Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, different environmental groups. In addition, we have data that we get from surveys that are sponsored by our international partners, such as the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, the Reproductive Health Survey, Victimization Survey, and the Jamaica Youth Activity Survey. To date, as I mentioned before, we have done 2 reports. We have done a statistical annex that accompanied the 2018 VNR, and we have recently completed another report on the statistical aspect of the SDGs. Since 2019, Statin, through a memorandum of understanding, has partnered with Mona School of Business and Management to, among other initiatives, improve data dissemination for the SDGs via a national reporting platform. This platform was developed using an open data source, which is a free-to-use platform, and it has been used by several other countries, including the UK, Germany, Canada, and Rwanda. The project, which we are thankful because we were struggling to get it done, was funded by the United Nations Resident Coordinator Office. And for this, we say thank you. The SDG reporting platform, as Faye has said before, is designed to store, manage, and disseminate SDG data and metadata. The platform facilitates greater information sharing, and the platform will allow citizens, policymakers, and other stakeholders to easily find, view, and download data for analysis and decision-making. I'll now hand over to Dr. McNaughton, who has aided us in preparing this dashboard to come and present the dashboard for us.
Thank you very much, Hope. Madam Chair, it's so good to see you again, Faye. And I hope that you'll permit me to observe prior protocol and just extend warm greetings to everyone here on behalf of the Mona School of Business and Management. You know, within the context of the partnership theme that pervades this, this symposium and this forum, it has been for us a really distinct pleasure to be collaborating with Statin on, as Hope mentioned, a variety of initiatives, and all of them geared towards ensuring that Jamaica can participate well in the data revolution, that we can become one of those countries that ensures that everyone counts, or as we like to say, you count, me count, all we count. Right? So as it's incredibly important. And this initiative, the SDG National Reporting Platform, is one of that portfolio of things that we're collaborating on. You know, from the vantage point of business, because we are a business school, the ability to come up with a set of strategic goals and objectives to identify metrics that chart how you're accomplishing those objectives, and then to continually measure your performance against that. It's just good management and business practice. The SDGs represent that framework for Jamaica, the enterprise, if we think of Jamaica that way. And we're hoping, we're optimistic that this national reporting platform will put us in a good position to be able to monitor, to track, and very importantly, to create visibility for how we're performing against the SDGs, so that, as is essential, if we're going to make it to Vision 2030 and achieve the collective goals, get as many people as possible engaged. So what I'm going to do here, I mean, in regard to this collaboration, I'm just a tech guy. So what I'm going to do here is just provide a very brief demonstration of how this works. And if my support colleagues will, am I on the website now? You sure? Okay. All right. So this is the homepage for the website, and it provides a kind of overview. Yeah, so this is the homepage for the website. And so from here, can everyone see? I did say I'm the tech guy, right? I need some technical support. Can you get that displayed for me? Do I need to do anything here? Incidentally, while I wait for this to come up, I see one of our young developers here in the audience, Omar. He's a person who is actively working on this along with Statin. So really good guy. And as Hope said, the platform is open source, which means a couple of things. It is free for use. It is free to customize and adapt to look the way Statin wants it to look and the way Jamaica wants it to look. And very importantly, the data on it is open data. So as you'll see very shortly, if you don't like the way information is being presented or the way charts are being done, you can download the entire reported data set and go do your own analysis. In fact, no, absolutely, that's very powerful. And as Hope mentioned, there's about a 42–43% reporting rate at this point in terms of the SDGs. So there's an enormous amount of data there for all of the indicators and the related targets going back, Hope, maybe 10 years in many cases. And one of the things I was just discussing with Hope, and it's Statin, and I'm rambling here until they fix this thing. But one of the things that we've been discussing is, you know, creating a competition for schools who can create the best visualization for any particular indicator that you have an interest in. It could be in education, it could be in decent work, it could be in climate change. Because you know, SDGs only work if we can engage all of society. And I think it's incredibly important that we can create that kind of visibility and engagement of civil society, and in particular our young ones. So that's definitely a project, an initiative that you can look out for. And I'm running out of words to ramble. So yeah, the only thing I would say while this comes is that, here we go. Okay, so it's actually quite a simple site. It's not rocket science, actually. Let me just go back to the home page, if it will allow me to. You sure it's working? We don't seem to be on the internet, are we? You sense that I'm running out of words. Please, you're so much better at this than I am.
Just do a little filling for you in the meantime. So let me just share with you, there are a few rooms that may have been changed. You know, you would have registered for various panels. Education is now at Ramson, right of the elevator. So when you locate the elevator, it's right of the elevator. Life on Land, Ali Mohammed, left of the elevator. The gender-based violence and citizen security, and that will be the Nigel Harris room, the main plenary, okay? We will also play videos when you are moving, and this is also important for the online people to know. So don't think we're done. We'll play some videos while you're moving into the different plenaries or panel discussions. The Life Below Water, Ramson, right of the elevator, and Food Systems, Ali Mohammed, left of the elevator. And you're wondering, will we ever get a break? Yes, after those, you'll get a break to have coffee or water or whatever. All right, are we good to go now, Maurice? Or does that look like no internet?
Waiting,
all right, so that means that you're going to have to speak about all of this thing, create the visual pictures for us to follow.
Yeah, well, I would just make one more observation, and when I'm finished this, if we haven't sorted this out, so, you know, again, just within the context of this whole sort of partnership symposium, at the Mono School of Business and Management, there are a number of initiatives that are part of this overall collaboration with Statin. One of those has to do with the national census, and we've just spent the last several months working with Statin, because you understand the current context, working with Statin to train over 7,000 census takers and over 1,000 census supervisors. And of course, we would have had to do this in a period where we are cautiously emerging from COVID. So a lot of that is either face-to-face and or virtual. It was just amazing to me, the scope of the census and what it takes. Imagine mobilizing a training effort island-wide for over 8,000 persons, and then deploying those persons in the field with tablet devices to undertake the current census. So it's a massive effort, and very often I think we underestimate what it takes to do a census. So we must commend Statin for that important national effort. Okay, so this is what the homepage looks like. And very quickly, I mean, you can get an overview of the SDGs and the SDG agenda if you're interested in doing that. There's a very quick reporting status which indicates where we are in terms of each of the goals. So this indicates how much indicators within each goal has been reported to date. So that's a very quick view. As Hope mentioned, there are also a number of collateral qualitative reports associated with the SDGs, such as the VNR. So you can jump directly to those as well. But let me show you just very quickly how the portal works. So if you take each SDG, let's take SDG 1, no poverty. I can click on that and I can see all of the related targets and then the associated indicators. So for instance, if I wanted to see under target 1.3, the proportion of the population covered by social protection systems such as PATH. If I go to that, it brings up all of the data that has been reported. Now, probably the most important thing when you go to each of these indicators is the menu on the left here, which gives you a sense of the variables and the scope, right? So here I could, for instance, decide that I want to see the population covered by PATH. I hope everyone can see the screen. Is it too small? Making it a little bit bigger. Yeah. So I can see all of the schemes here, and let's say I'm interested in PATH. Okay, so that's a variable that I'm interested in looking at. And then scope, I want to look at path for, well, in this case, all of Jamaica. And for path, we're reporting on percentage. So essentially, in the menu here, I can look at a variable. I can look at its scope. Is it for men? Is it for women? Is it for Kingston, or is it for rural? And so that would be for that particular indicator. So that's roughly how it works. And then I can look at the chart. I can look at tables of all of the data. And if I'm so inclined, I can download the data right from here. So I can just download all of the data relating to path. Let's look at another one that's a little bit interesting. Let's talk about financial inclusion. So 8.10.1, the number of commercial bank branches and ATMs per 1,000 employees. So let's take 8, decent work and economic growth. And hope that would be 8.10.1. So again, within each goal, you see the targets and the related indicators. So 8.10, number of commercial bank branches per 1,000 adults. And again, we can see here that that indicator is reported. So I can click on that, and it's going to give me a chart. Now, one of the things that we've done is visualize, especially those indicators that have sort of map-based information. We have created some sort of more enhanced visual charts. So in this particular case, I'm looking at total number of deposit accounts per 100,000 adults, and the number of bank branches and ATMs per 1,000 adults, right? And so that's one of the measures of financial inclusion. And again, this is the kind of thing where you can just go to the table and download. You can, again, on this side, decide what variables and what metrics you're interested in. Here we're looking at ATMs, but I could as well just look at the number of commercial branches. So I think of the platform as just a big electronic repository where Setting has all of this information relating to the SDGs and our progress. I'm going to show you one more quick one, which I think is everyone should be interested in. It has to do with land. So which parish in Jamaica you think has the greatest land consumption? Yes. So Hope, tell me, that is the percentage, that's 11.3, right? So let me go to Hope. Let's pull up that indicator, sustainable cities and communities. And this is just to give you a feel that the SDGs are measuring the length and breadth of what it takes for us to develop as a country and to achieve that 2030 goal, right? So in this particular case, it would be 11.3.1. So the ratio of land consumption to population growth rate. Hope, you're the statistician. I'm only the tech guy. But if we look at the map view on this, you will see that St. Thomas, it suggests, has a very, what is that, Hope? St. Thomas has the highest rate of land use. Is that what it means? Huh? Underutilized. Okay. I said I'm only the tech guy. She's a statistician. But listen, a visual like this, if you're interested in looking at land use vis-a-vis population growth, this is a really interesting indicator to look at. And again, so you can look at this. I can look at the rates of land consumption. I can look at the rates of population growth. I can look at indicators, for instance, like road deaths. Which parish you think has the highest rate of road deaths? So maybe a little bit of a gruesome statistic to look at, but you know, it's part of our reality. So one of the things you can do here is just do a search if you want to look at a particular indicator, right? So I am searching for road death rate due to road traffic injuries. So that's indicator 3.6.1. So you can go by the goals, or if there's a particular thing that you're interested in, land, financial inclusion, banks, just do a search and it shows you all the related indicators. So in this particular case, I'm going to look at death rate due to road traffic injuries. And we can see here, well, first of all, the national average at the top, the rate is going up, right? Going up. And this is up to 2019. I imagine it would have dipped during the COVID years. Hopefully it continues to go down. But you can see that traffic death per thousand, St. Catherine is the highest. You can visually look at the map and see that, right? St. Catherine, then Trelawney, then Westmoreland. Probably. And so you can look at it by year, or you can look at it aggregate by parish. And again, these numbers are interesting, right? I mean, these are things that we talk about in snippets, where you can go to the platform and you can download the variables for all of these things. And if you choose to, and I'm wrapping up now, Chair, if I go back to the homepage, if you choose to, if you don't like the visuals that are there, you can go and download the entire data set of 10 years of 117 hope indicators for the 17 goals and go and play around with that. So I think it's an enormous opportunity to get people, not only make it visible, but to get people involved in the SDG agenda, because sometimes it's a little bit too abstract for some persons, and especially our school kids. I can think of some great projects that they could do with this open data. So that's where we are. It's an ongoing process. And again, our hope is that this all of society approach that the SDG agenda cultivates, all of us will make sure that we get to 2030, not only intact, but having accomplished many of our goals. So thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hope is my boss, so she's going to wrap up.
Okay. I would just like to use this opportunity on behalf of the Statistical Institute of Jamaica to say a big thank you to Mona School of Business for assisting us in this project. Without them, I don't think it would be possible because of resource constraint. Would also like to thank the UN Coordinator Office for stepping in at such a late stage and for helping us to fund this project. I'd also like to thank Amar, who was late on board, but who has helped us to reach this far. I would also like now to ask persons in the room to support this initiative by providing data when we request it from you. Currently, we have a problem in collecting data. That is one of the biggest problems that we have. We write to places and they're not willing to provide the data. We will not be publishing anything about any person, anybody, any person, any organization. So please feel free to give us. And last but not least, please make sure that when the census taker comes around, that you provide your census. Thank you. Open your doors. Well, your laptop, please. That's not right.
Hope I was about to tell you that I'm anxiously awaiting the census taker. And as I listen to the presentation and the way the technology is being utilized, Dr. Cornel, my mother is 94 and she was a census taker. And on about 2, because, you know, at 94, when did we have censuses hope? Anyway, the point is that, I remember it's a wide audience and not the Jamaican. You all have devices now that take you into the field. In those days, it was on foot, over hill and dale, pen and paper. You understand? And she would move from Smithville up into the hills, Victoria, sometimes to reach as far as Grantham. And it was a rigorous testing to find out whether or not she'd be able to do this thing. And without the education that you with degrees and stuff, but she was a bright woman without all of the academic accomplishments. And she did it, you know? So we have come a far way. So we know, I would like to, as Hope has asked you to do, and because growing up with a mother like that, I understood the importance of things like being a part of a census. She made it very clear, you know, and I'd like to encourage everyone who might be listening, who are thinking, no, I don't want to give just give it. It's important. Nobody taking your personal information from you, give it. And no, yes, please. Watch, I know. You see this now? You see this? I have to accommodate him, and I know him a long time.
She's my friend. I neglected to tell you the URL. Someone just asked me. It's SDG NRP. That's SDG National Reporting Platform. So SDG NRP at .statinj.gov.gm. So if you know Statin's website, just put SDG NRP in front of it. But I'm sure the communications that go out will provide all of that information. But for those of you who want to start kicking the tires, you can do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Matt Norton. So I'm just going to remind you we're running a little late. So just to remind you where you should go now. And I hope that the panel discussions will be just rich and that you will give everything you have. So education, Ramson, right of elevator. Life on land, Ali Mohammed, left of elevator. Gender-based violence and citizen security, that's Nigel Harris, main plenary. We will be playing videos. And for those of you online, don't go anywhere. We're just trying to get people into their places, and then we'll be carrying on. I want to thank JIS working so hard this morning to make sure it is carried throughout. Then life below water, Ramson, right of elevator. Food systems, Ali Mohammed, left of elevator. And then after that, you'll have a break. But if you do need something in between, please indicate to someone because it's a long morning. Thank you very much. Thank you so very much. Make sure you give everything you've come prepared to give and stay on the panel or the group or the room for which you have been registered. Right, Morgan? Okay. All the best.
United Nations is the product of hope. The hope and resolve following the Second World War to move beyond global conflict to global cooperation. Today, our organization is being tested like never before. But United Nations was made for moments like these. Now more than ever, we need to bring to life the values and principles of the UN Charter in every corner of the world. By giving peace a chance and ending conflicts that jeopardize lives, futures, and global progress. By working to end extreme poverty, reduce inequalities, and rescue the Sustainable Development Goals. By safeguarding our planet, including by breaking our addiction to fossil fuels and kickstarting the renewable energy revolution. And by finally balancing the scales of opportunity and freedom for women and girls and ensure human rights for all. As we mark UN Day, let us renew our hope and conviction in what humanity can achieve when we work as one in global solidarity.
Hi, I'm Gary Canillo, the UN Resident Coordinator here in Jamaica. The UN country team is proud to have supported the completion of Jamaica's voluntary national review under the committed leadership of the government of Jamaica. I want to first thank the team of the Planning Institute of Jamaica and its Director General, Dr. Wayne Henry, for their strategic engagement as together we track Jamaica's implementation and progress towards Agenda 2030. Building on our strong partnership with the PIOJ, the UN country team with RCO leadership worked closely with government to consult, agree, and define the needs for the VNR. With guidance from the Planning Institute, Jamaica's VNR has been enriched with an assessment on the impact of COVID-19 on social protection, tourism, education, and the labor markets, with digitalization as a cross-cutting issue. It contains dedicated chapters of review on SDGs 2, 13, 14, and SDG 15. It includes a thematic report on strengthening the corporate social responsibility framework for the SDGs in Jamaica, as well as an assessment of Jamaica's alignment with the SDGs and recommendations for strengthening local SDG action. The final VNR document, strongly guided by the vision of the Jamaican government, reflects the most up-to-date body of evidence and socioeconomic progress in areas such as climate change development and impacts, the sustainable use of oceans, seas, and marine resources, as well as efforts to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of Earth. With UN support, this SDG tracking process was also able to embody the views of Jamaican youth through insightful consultations conducted with young people. The end product is a document that we are all extremely proud of. I am particularly happy that the RCO was able to coordinate in its preparation and that we were able to support and ensure that the voices from many different stakeholders, including young Jamaicans, private sector, government, and NGOs, often left behind, are reflected in this report and will be heard at this year's high-level political forum. With the government of Jamaica, we are planning for nationwide dissemination of this VNR through, among many channels, the national launch of a new web-based SDG platform. And in this way, we hope to further inspire and coalesce public engagement around the SDGs. Global events continue to challenge our resolve. This is the time to release the accelerator on our path towards the SDGs. With real commitment, the right policies and investment, strong partnerships, we can make significant progress towards the SDGs. This will, of course, require sharing best practices and challenges, as well as lessons learned, so that all countries around the world can strengthen policies and institutions and mobilize multi-stakeholder support and partnerships. The VNR offers the opportunity to do so. The UN country team, under my leadership, stands ready to work closely with Jamaica and its partners to build and accelerate its progress towards achieving the 2030 agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all my doctors then.
Thank you, nurse.
Thanks to the teachers. Big up the sanitation worker them.
Thank all of you guys.
Thank you.
Big up all of the frontline worker them.
Them deserve a thanks. Big up the police force.
Thanks to the soldier them.
Big up for the fisherman, the man, the farmer. Saying every time.
Thank you to all the frontline workers responding to COVID-19 and keeping the Jamaican economy alive. From your efforts, Jamaica will recover and build forward better. We salute you, our heroes on the front line. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you for your service.
The Joint SDG Fund is committed to strengthening resilience